Today's goal is to find out if I am big enough and bad enough. Well, I'm definitely not big enough because I'm a gnome. For Lower Guk at level 31. As you can see, I'm in the Oasis of Mar here. I've got South Row behind me. And I don't think I've shown South Row on this walkthrough yet, so I'm going to show the run to Lower Guk. Let's see if I'm ready for it. Let's do it. Okay, South Row. I like the row zones. I like the whole desert zone concept that they did in this game. You've got North Row, Oasis, South Row, and it kind of feels like this sandwich or like puzzle pieces that all fit together really well because you've got a formula for both North and South Row where North Row, it actually does start out coming from Freeport as a little bit of a desert, but then you transition into this green space, which lasts for a good little bit, and then you go to the pure, just mostly desert part of the zone, which is most of South Row. And you've got the little part of the tunnel with these commons. And then Oasis is just pure desert with, obviously, the whole water part in the middle with the specters and all that, the goblins underwater, which I want to fight at some point, although they're very dangerous. And then we've got South Row, which picks up on the same template as North Row, where you've got a mostly desert part for the first chunk, and then it transitions into this green space here. And I like all that. I always get lost trying to find the Innothule zone line, so this time I had to look it up in advance. That's what I was just doing there when the screen got a little choppy. It's because I minimized the window so that I wouldn't get lost trying to find this zone line. Now, there's an elephant in the room here. Jane's has a new outfit she's very happy with. I will save all the East Commons tunnel stuff and how I got the money, the buying, and the selling. I'll save that for the end of the video. I'll show you all the new items I got. And spoiler alert, since this right here is a little bit of post-commentary, I did actually get an item from Lower Guk, so get excited for that. Now, the reason why I'm doing post-commentary is because my neighbor, God bless her, she's a very old lady, but she's doing a lot of renovations in her house right now. And literally right on the other side of the wall I'm on, something big's going on over there on the day that I recorded this, so I did get some live commentary, but this is going to be a mix of post and live because it was just too noisy for me to actually record audio. I got all the footage, but the audio, sometimes it was just way too loud. Now we're in the swamp, and again, every game's got to have a desert level, every game's got to have a swamp level. Maybe not necessarily the swamp level in every game, but a lot of the big RPGs like the Final Fantasies and the Zeldas and all that, they do try to include a swamp level. Now, I felt like, I wish they had done this with Everfrost because I felt like they didn't do as much for the snow level as they should have done. Because you really just get Everfrost, yes, you could say Hallis. Oh, got that one on me. Yes, you could say Everfrost, as well as Hallis and Permafrost, but Permafrost is a dungeon, so it's a little different than what I'm talking about. And Hallis is a city, which, yeah, okay, it kind of fits the mold, but they only did 2 real zones for the snow level, whereas the deserts, you got 3, plus you could argue the desert kind of spills over to North Row, or, no, sorry, East Commons and West Commons, which I like. I like that it spills over, and you see a little bit of that, like the Befallen zone. It makes me wonder, like, is that under the desert? Anyway, they made up for it by making a whole expansion on the snow stuff, so I'm okay with that. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier, I died off camera prior to filming this in, of all places, freaking Kithakor again. That zone, man. That zone is just cursed for me. I didn't even die at night. If you hear the, oh, I died in Kithakor, you would think it's at night. No, I was on auto run, and I ran over this hut that had dark elves in it, and they just killed me. I didn't even have a chance. All right, here's Guk. I got a res, thankfully. Someone was passing through, and I got a res. This is Guk. This is like the big dungeon for ogres and trolls, I would say, but really everyone comes here. And that really is in reference to Upper Guk. Lower Guk, you're going to get everyone because it was just the zone. Lower Guk and Sol B were the zones for higher level, like 40 plus. Let's see who's in here. By the way, I'm trying to use a quieter keyboard because some people are complaining in the comments about the sound of the loud keyboard. Yes, I know it's loud. It doesn't help that I'm playing on a metal table here, which just amplifies every noise, so you get the super clicky keyboard combined with the metal table. I gotta put like a little mat underneath this, that should dumb the sound. So this, I'm showing you the run from Upper Guk to Lower Guk. There are multiple ways to get there. This is the main one that everyone uses. And I'm trying not to train these people that are exping here. I don't have Invis, unfortunately. I thought about picking up an Invis potion, which, honestly, I should always have a couple of those on hand, but I just didn't. And I'm KOS to the frogs, which really pissed me off. I get it, Bertoxilus, but I don't know. I just thought maybe they would be at least dubious. And my hope is that if I kill enough in Lower Guk, I can get dubious. But then again, I do need to kill some mobs in this zone for some quests, so whatever. We'll see. Some of this part is kind of slidey. That was one of the gimmicks with Guk. They made like a slidey, slimy... I don't know, I wouldn't call it a trap, but you could easily fall off a ledge if you don't know that that part is slidey. And here we are. It's really not that bad of a run. It's pretty quick. Yep, past that Gaz Knight, and here we go. Now, here's what happened. I was going to do this episode in Guk, Lower Guk specifically, because I wanted to try my hand at the Undead. As I was literally on my way to Lower Guk, I got a tell from someone, that guy there, Git, G-I-I-T, he's an Ixar Necro. I got a tell from him saying, hey, do you want to join a Lower Guk group? And I was like, sure. And I think at first he talked about, oh, you know, we could duo, but now I've got a friend on the way, so. Okay, now the real fun begins. So that was the run to Guk. Pretty quick if you have so, not a big deal and you know where you're going. Now, I realized there was a little gap there that I didn't get to film, but we were just past the... Like, you come out where I ended filming the run, you go to the right, you go down a little hallway and to the right again, and you end up where we were. And then you swim under here, and this is a camp called Bedroom. This is probably the first place most people camp in Lower Guk. It's the lowest level place you can camp. It's got a mix of undead, bats, which you'll see us fight here in a second. This is a really, really great camp if you're... I would say between 30 and 35, it's doable mostly, especially if you've got a tank that's maybe 36, 37. And I'm the lowest level person in this group, by the way. So we've got me, this Leroyce guy is a Enchanter, Veliax is a Shadow Knight, and we do have a Paladin coming, and Git is a Necro, Git is the XR. So, pretty good group. The Shadow Knight is not part of this other, like, they're all in the same guild except for me and the Shadow Knight. I found that out later. The Shadow Knight was pretty good. I would say we put each other on our friends list. We got along really well. And we actually duoed after this. So me and the Shadow Knight got along pretty well. I like these two as well. The Necro and the Enchanter kind of argued a little bit throughout the group. It was kind of funny. But, you know, those things happen. And the Paladin that came is really good. Honestly, everyone's kind of twinked. And part of that is not just because people are twinking their ults, it's because everything in these commons is so cheap. So here, the Necro tried to single pull one of the bats, and of course we got a ton of ads, and so the Enchanter steps in and stuns, and then tries to do a AE Mez. Well, that's what I would have done if I were the Enchanter, but actually he did a single Mez. And so, here I am trying to heal all that. Now, let's talk about Guk for a second. Guk, as I said, was one of the prolific original dungeons, high-end dungeons. You could argue there were 3 high-end-ish dungeons that all had a lower-level component to them in the original vanilla EverQuest. You had Lower Guk, obviously, Sol B, and Permafrost. Permafrost, it's a little iffy. Part of the problem with Permafrost is that it was just so far out of the way for most people. It just wasn't convenient to get to. And so people were like, well, why would I go there if I could go to Sol B and Guk? Plus, kind of a pain to get to the higher level parts of Everfrost or Permafrost. And then there's the whole Lady Vox thing. If she's up, it kind of makes some of that a pain in the butt. So, mostly, my recollection, people 40 plus, it was pretty evenly split between Sol B and Lower Guk. Now, Lower Guk is divided into 2 parts. People call it live side and dead side. I will admit, I am not a Lower Guk expert. I'm just not. I played it a lot on a variety of servers, including P99 Blue when pre-Kunark existed. I know dead side reasonably well. It's kind of a maze to me, but I know how to get to certain spots. Like, I've always known how to get to the assassin room, and I've always known how to get through Upper Guk. But live side, I've only done a couple times, and that side feels a lot more linear to me, and I'll put these maps up here so you can see what I'm talking about. And also, live side, a lot of people just didn't want to do because they didn't want to lose the faction, although even me as someone who's trying not to lose live frog faction, I'm kind of like, why? Like, Like, who cares? It just doesn't matter. And the faction hits you get from killing the undead frogs, it's not that great. So, I think the Shadow Knight was doing a pretty good job tanking, by the way. Especially, I found this out later, she's brand new to EQ. She just told, I don't know if it's an actual woman in real life, by the way, just like I'm not, and James is a female character. But she told me she was brand new to the game. I would not have guessed that. I didn't find that out until after this group when we were duoing together. So I thought she did a great job. She's level 38, I believe, which means you can't tank too far into this zone. And the paladin that came was about the same level. So that's another thing that I like about these zones. You can be level, 30 to 35 and go to a camp like Bedroom and do great in Lower Guk. But you cannot go that much further until you're in your 40s. Once you're in your, I'd say 45 plus, you can go anywhere in Guk. So here's some of the dead frogs, the ghoul knights, and there's this whole grading system of where it says a Vis ghoul knight versus a Shin ghoul knight. The Shin is the lowest level, I believe. And here we have some charming going on with the Enchanter, which I always appreciate. It's kind of a lot of work for the Enchanter to do, but it's great DPS. The Shin ghoul knight is lower level. I don't know all the little gradients of them. Like, I think the ones with Guk in the title are the highest, but I could be wrong. And maybe it's the ones with the Z in the title. So that second word there, a blank ghoul knight, a blank ghoul wizard, whatever, it'll give you a rough idea of the level range of the mob, and they vary all the way up until about, I want to say high 40s. The Ghoul Lord and the Froglock King, those are two of the highest level mobs in the zone. I think they are the two highest level mobs in the zone. They're probably about 50. Could be wrong, but they're not far off. So the way that I always looked at it was, let's just say you're level 44 and you want some XP, and it's pre-Kunark. If you want a chance at some really good loot, you go to Guk. If you want a chance at just, consistent XP, a little bit safer, a little bit easier to get to, Sol B was the way to go. Sol B did not have as much good loot as Guk. Lower Guk was like the loot spot. Just the way that we kind of looked at Sebelis once Kunark came out. It was like, oh, you want good loot? You go to Sebelis. Pre-Kunark, it was like, oh, you want some really nice high-end items that'll sell really well? Yeah, go to Guk. And I would say it's mostly on the dead side of Guk. And it's interesting because I was listening to an interview, and this is a guy on YouTube that does these interviews with some of the developers of EverQuest, who I actually had one of them comment on one of my videos recently, so that was cool. But the guy that was being interviewed, and I love this whole series that this guy has put together, he said that he designed both Ak Anon and Lower Guk. And I was like, that's a really random combination. We're going to have you design one city and one dungeon. I guess it makes sense depending on the size of the team at the time. This was like 97. I don't think it was a huge team. But you start to think about those two zones and you're like, are there any similarities? There kind of are. But the thing that I find so fascinating about the whole live side, dead side thing is they don't feel like they're even in size. It feels like live side is almost like an afterthought. That's at least how the player base treated it. Okay, so you can see that our Necro here is pulling still, and I'm trying to get a heal off while he comes in. I want to point something out real quick. You see how his pet has that torch in its left hand? That is something that you see a lot in this game. People will give either charmed or summoned pets that torch in the left hand. The belief, and I've never confirmed this, but it seems ubiquitous enough that it's probably true, is that if you put a torch in the left hand of a pet, it will allow it to quad attack more or something like that. I don't know why he's not attacking this mob with his pet, by the way. Right now we're doing this section here where we're trying to clear out the way to the assassin/supplier room. I don't know if we're actually going to get there, but yeah, that's why he's got that torch on the skeleton of his pet. And you'll see me here, I'm trying to loot because I need that money. And this was really good money. So I was talking about how the whole Ak Anon / Guk bottom thing, that really made me wonder, because those, well, I don't know how big of a hit Ak Anon was, but Lower Guk was a huge hit with the player base. It made me wonder if they were like, hey, you need to design a bunch of zones in our next expansion. I don't know if they kept that guy on for that, and I can't remember from the interview. So you can see here our Necro is trying to figure out where we can go, because we do want to go to the Assassin Supplier. Frenzied is camped. That's very common because that drops the Flowing Black Silk Sash. Someone is camping the Assassin Supplier, so that's not going to happen for us yet. And there's so many camps, though. And some of them kind of get grouped together, and you see it on the map. It's like some of these things are so close. Yeah, why not make them one camp? So far, everything has been blue to me, but I'm certain as we go deeper that as a level 31, there will definitely be stuff that's higher level than me. Okay, we're on the move here. Finally moving deeper and trying to get this last heal off before we go. Of course, I couldn't resist looting a couple corpses on the way here. Crystallized marrow, I don't know if that sells better than bone chips. It probably is more of a merchant thing. One of the things to notice on the walls here is that the walls have this dripping effect coming down them. It's kind of hard to see. And I also couldn't resist, since we're fighting undead, throw a couple nukes out there. The heals haven't been super needed. Like I said, people in this group are kind of twinked, or at least well-geared, so the heals aren't super necessary. And I'm a cleric. I'm a battle cleric. I have all those undead nukes. There, look at me, I'm sitting on my little rock. Except we're moving. I was just getting comfortable and we're moving again. Now we enter into, oh boy, this is where things, I call this, now the real Guk begins. You see that on the wall up there? Look at that. You got the fire pits to the left and the right of it, and then you've got this giant frog mouth open thing with it dripping out what I can only assume is Guk. And we have our first wizard. So this guy, this guy is, we have multiple wizards here. Yellow, first of all, so we've got our first yellow mob. And the problem with the wizards is, yes, they have lower hit points, but they do a ton of damage. And they do something that's so funny to me. This was always funny to me throughout, like, even Kunark, Belius, all that stuff. You would have these mobs that are capable of hitting really hard, and they'll stop hitting you with, like, their quad attacks to cast some 400 damage nuke, and they're leaving all this damage on the table, but it's just kind of built into their AI. It's funny to me. But a similar thing exists here, except this is kind of the level range where they can really do some damage. Like, that is probably some sort of stun spell that he was casting right there. Which wizards do get those stun/direct damage spells. He's casting some sort of fire spell. That one got off. And occasionally they'll cast area effect spells that'll hit pretty much the whole group. And, oh, I'm showing here that I got these gauntlets that are better mana-wise. Like, if I'm just sitting in a group casting heals over and over, and I don't need to take any hits, those are better. But if I'm doing some tanking, the Gauntlets of the Black are better. They're both good. It's not a tremendous difference. Oh, hell yeah, I'll take that staff. And now we have our first gargoyles, which is, this is kind of annoying because it's like a mix of undead and non-undead, but hey, it's part of the fun. You do get to a point where it's mostly just undead. We're kind of at that point already. Like, besides these gargoyles, we're not going to see much besides undead. So we're right near the Assassin Supplier Room here, which is a prolific camp. You can get the, I don't even remember what it's called, but it's the 827 dagger for rogues that has the, I think it's Engulfing Darkness proc. It might be the one below Engulfing Darkness. That was a great item pre-Kunark. It kind of fell off a fence post-Kunark. Like, during Kunark, I should say. Because it just wasn't a good enough ratio to justify it. Plus, it's kind of a high, what do you call it? A high aggro proc for a rogue, which is typically trying to avoid aggro so that they can keep backstabbing. That same Assassin Supplier also drops the assassin drops the mask that allows rogues to turn into dark elves, and up until a certain point, pre-Kunark, anyone could wear that mask and just turn, any class could turn themselves into a dark elf, which is something that they eventually decided, you know what, let's keep that a rogue bard thing. I don't know if that was for the better. I mean, it was kind of I don't, it's not overpowered. It doesn't give you any actual benefit other than Ultra Vision. But they just thought it was something that should be special, and I guess for just a specific class. So it took that away. But if you got it before they made the change, before the nerf, I say in air quotes, then you're grandfathered in, you're good, which is why when this server launched, that was like the first thing people rushed to camp. That, and I mean, not so much Journeyman's Boots, it was pretty much that and Rubicite, because Journeyman's Boots you could still get, you just had to do that pain in the ass quest. And then the other item that drops here is the thick banded belt, which I like when they do this. They eventually made an item, I think in Belius, called thin banded belt. It's like a little play on items from the past. It's kind of funny. I want to loot that corpse over there so bad, that Zol Ghoul Knight. It's so far away and I'm worried I'm going to aggro other stuff. Okay, we're still down here and we don't have anything close to a full group. We still don't have that paladin, which was supposed to be our original tank. We just had the Shadow Knight that we picked up along the way, who was trying to climb a ladder just there. So the Shadow Knight just said something funny. She just said, the brave level 31 cleric down here in Lower Guk, LOL. If only you guys knew that I'm filming this whole thing. Yep, that's me, the brave 31 cleric. So yeah, we're still without the paladin, who is supposed to be our original tank. And that paladin, I'm told, is super twinked. Yep, that's me. The Wand Ghoul Knights, these ones are a little higher. Why that? Oh, because I still have Invis vs Undead on. Otherwise, that would certainly not be indifferent to me. Invis vs Undead is very valuable for certain parts of this zone. If you can get the double Invis, where you already have one of them on you and someone casts the other one on you. So let's say I already have Invis vs Undead on, and someone casts Invisible on me, regular Invisible, then I can be both Invisible versus Undead and regular mobs, which is kind of like a rogue sneak. Oh, and you see that the Necro here put on Lebecker, I love the pet names, a stun whip to help with, well, to help whip the mob's ass, but also to help stun them, especially if they're casters, which will help the tank take less damage, ideally. So I kept this Invis vs Undead on just to feel a little bit safer, and I really wanted that corpse. I told you I really wanted that corpse. I'm gonna do it. I want that Fine Steel Warhammer. And then I heard that, and I'm like, oh no, did I aggro something by accident? Am I causing a huge train? That's why I was backing up slowly. Turns out I didn't. That was just the Shadow Knight pulling. Whew. Dodged a bullet there. I will screw something up kind of royally in a little bit, though. I'll show you that. I feel really bad. This happens to every cleric, and I'm not excusing it, because what I did was wrong, but it happens to every cleric. You'll see it in a second. I had to hide all these corpses because there's just so damn many of them, and it can sometimes get in the way when you're trying to target something. Now, generally when I'm healing, and eventually I'm going to move this group bar into the middle just because it's easier to see. The stun just went off there. Generally when I'm healing, I don't need to click on the person's name. Oh, I just saw 4 things get aggroed. What? Are they all here? Oh no, okay. If you do the F1 through... Well, so F1 is always going to be self-target. So you click... And this is assuming you don't change the settings. F1 will self-target. F2 will target the first person in your group window there on the right. So if I hit F2 right now, it would target Git. If I hit F3, it would target Veliax. And if I hit F4, it would target Leroy's. And there I'm hearing... Okay, so that probably is the Necro aggroing stuff as he's trying to pull. This person is so funny. Gnome Cleric is very odd. Cool, though. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Leroy's is trying to be small just like me, probably so he can see through the walls. Yeah, not the best starting wisdom, although all these items I've been getting for dirt cheap in East Commons have helped with that. That whole East Commons thing, which I'm going to talk about a little bit at the end of this video, it's just a result of this server being overfarmed and at this point a little over 3 years old. I guess coming up on 3.5 years old. Style over min-max any day of the week, as seen by my Dark Elf Shadow Knight. I totally agree. I've done the whole thing. In fact, a few years ago, I was playing a human Necro that I really liked, and I got to about level 22, and I was like, you know what? This is so inefficient. This is so stupid. I should just be an XR, even though I don't really like XRs, because the regen is so valuable. And then I regretted that. I actually deleted the human cleric, because I liked the name that I had on the character, and I was like, the human Necro, to make the Ixar Necro. And yes, it was much more efficient because I had regen, I had the AC, bonus. But I just eventually kind of like didn't care, and I regretted not having that human Necro. So if she liked the Dark Elf Shadow Knight better, good. Play that. Because, you know, a troll would be ugly if you think they're ugly. I like the way trolls look, but I don't like the way they run. Ogres are an acquired taste. I do love how when they aggro, these mobs all say, Roke. I like when mobs give you a warning, because then if you're sitting far away, or like above in this case, because that Necro is pulling from below, and you see a bunch of those Rokes, it's kind of a warning that there might be a ton of stuff coming. Okay, here's where I screwed up. See how the Necro said, take your time, med up, I guess. Split is being difficult, sorry, med up, I guess. I took a quick AFK without announcing it, and now you can see the Necro comes back, and he's got like no health left. And I don't even see it until right now, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? Oh, target the Necro. And I didn't even target it the most efficient way that I just talked about by hitting F2. Thankfully, I did heal him up. Oh, thank god I saved him. Okay, so I was able to save him, at least in that moment, but he has so much aggro on him right now. It's just freaking me out even to rewatch this back, because this is like a Cleric's worst nightmare. Like, you come back and everyone's dying, and you're just like, oh my god, who do I heal first? Now in this case there was only one guy dying, but it was still, I had a timer in my head, and now I'm getting my ass kicked. I purposely cast Divine Aura here to get the aggro off of me. I'm rooted, by the way, and now other people are getting their ass kicked, and I'm like, okay, do I click off Divine Aura so I can heal them? And now they're running away too, and I'm like, well, are you zoning? Are you like, what's the strategy here? Because I'm pretty sure stuff is respawning back there. So I waited eventually for Divine Aura, and then I just had to let me just heal him, and then, oh, it's too late. And now I'm getting my ass kicked, and I'm rooted, and I'm so focused on healing the Necro that I don't realize I'm getting my ass kicked, and I don't have time, and I'm dead. And that's what happens in Lower Guk. You go there as a level 31 Cleric, and you die. And then what happens? You end up in Steamfont Mountains, because that's where you're still bound. And that's also a stupid thing to do. But it's this whole idea I have that I want to stay in the same bind spot the whole game, for no real reason. I tried. I came back a little late. I was a little thrown off, and yeah. And now the Necro says, I didn't think the Enchanter would be AFK this long. Granted, yes, the Enchanter being AFK was a big part of why we just died, but I take some responsibility as well. I feel really bad. I screwed that up. I was AFK because he said med for a minute. I should have just said, okay, I'm going to go AFK. And then you can see the Necro was trying with Screaming Terror to do their little... what some people call a ghetto mez, I say in air quotes. You know, Screaming Terror can work as a mez, but when you have an Enchanter in the group, you'd ideally like to think that your Enchanter will do the mezzing. So, thankfully, I guess usually this goes hand in hand with a super twinked character, which the Necro definitely is, but he's got someone that's going to come to res us. You can see the first thing I memorized there, well, the second thing actually, was Divine Aura. That's because I tried to get that memorized as fast as possible, because there's like a 10-minute refresh between uses, and that counts memorizing it, so that you can't just unmemorize it and rememorize it and have a fresh use. Same with Divine Barrier. Alright, let's see if this Necro can get us mezzed. Or rezzed. Not mezzed. And mezzed is what the Enchanter should have been doing. Alright, so I haven't shown rezzing too much here, but this is what happens when you get rezzed. You get this little box popping up that asks you if you want to be rezzed, and you can see in the group chat down here, the Necro is kind of going at the Enchanter a little bit, saying, because the Enchanter comes back and he's dead. And he's like, what went south? And the Necro's like, well, I didn't think you'd be gone that long. He's saying that someone, when he was AFK, distracted him in real life, I guess. So, when you get rezzed, you start out with this little thing in the top right, the buff box, that is going to be your first buff for about 5 minutes. And it's basically resurrection effects that lower your stats. See how it says strength 1 and stamina 1, agility 1? That's from the res effects. And so typically what you'll do, you also start at like, I want to say 25-ish% health. It's hard to tell because the Cleric just healed me really quick there. And buffed me. Heroic Bond. Awesome. That'll take care of me having a buff for a while. You have no mana. You're low health. Typically when you're in a group situation like this, well, usually it's higher level, but if you get a res, the first thing that people do is they give you like a clarity buff, hit point buff. Now, as the Cleric, you'll typically do the resing. But in this case, if you're the Cleric and you die, they'll either try to find another cleric in the zone, or you just got to run back and try to do it yourself. Alright, look who finally showed up here. The paladin, the long-lost paladin. And she's level 38. Okay, so that puts her at the same level as 36. Puts her a little bit lower than the Shadow Knight, but her gear is pretty dang good. And I forgot to mention, so the death that I had in Kithakor, that was about, I think that was death number 16 for me on this walkthrough. And then this death here in Lower Guk would be 17, if my math is correct, and I think it is. So death number 17, not going to get the whole see if you can make it through the game without dying thing. Dark Souls 2, that would have gotten you a special ring. But in P99, it doesn't do anything, so who cares? And I'm wondering, if I'm level 31, and I'm kind of struggling here, Paladin is 32, you know, the whole thing about, I mentioned in a previous video, if you're a healer, you can kind of be the lowest person in the group. If you're a tank, you kind of want to be on the higher end of the group. But it could happen, especially if they're twinked. Yeah, they could maybe do bedroom / the junk leading up to bedroom. And this is where I decided Divine Barrier was going to be helpful, because I didn't like how that whole situation played out where I had Divine Aura on, and it's always good to have both up in general, but I feel like I should have clicked it off earlier and started healing the Necro and myself. And I don't know, I just felt like, you know what, especially now that the Paladin's here, I'm not going to be casting as many other spells, nuking and stuff like that, so let me just put up Divine Barrier just in case, because you never know if a situation like that occurs again. What you want to do is use Divine Aura to get aggro off of you, and then ideally, well, now that we have 2 tanks, hopefully, they will be able to gather the aggro of the multiple mobs that are attacking you while you have Divine Aura up. Once they do, click it off, and then heal yourself, heal the other people. Plus the Enchanter's back now, so ideally we'll be good to go. Alright, and now looks like we're moving again. So whenever you see the guy spam his pet back, that's basically a sign that he's pulling. And it looks like we have 2 here, which is fine. Especially now that our Enchanter's back, we should be okay. Now, it's around this point that the Necro just doesn't really trust the Enchanter anymore, and he just starts mezzing stuff himself, which is hilarious, and I totally understand it, but... See, he's doing Screaming Terror, which I don't even know where the Enchanter is. It says he's down in a hole. And now I'm rooted, and I'm getting hit again, so this would be a great opportunity for me to use... Oh, there's the Enchanter. For me to use Divine Aura. Not because I want to use the whole thing and just sit there and med while this thing beats on me, but just to give the opportunity for either the Paladin to get aggro, the Shadow Knight to get aggro, or the Enchanter / Necro to finally mez this thing. But I didn't have it up. And that's why I memmed 2 of them. This group was a little chaotic at times, but it overall worked pretty well. I think partly because people were just so twinked. And most of us knew what we were doing. Yes, I screwed up with the little AFK there, what they call a ninja AFK. You can see there the Necro's calling out the Enchanter. Is he AFK? Oh, there he is! And I think now we're kind of debating if we're going to move, and yes, we do ultimately move. We actually go pretty far down. The loot here was insane. So, I'm going to talk about this a little bit at the end, but I was killing a lot of willowisps and turning in... Oh, this Shadow Knight was so kind. He's giving me all these little gems that he finds. And just items. I guess probably inspected me and was like, oh, this person needs help more than anyone else in the group. But I was killing willowisps and turning them into the S-row merchants to get the book, to sell it. If you know about the willowisp thing, you know that it's a good source of money. It's also decent XP at this level. But that was my main source of income. But since I got to this group, holy moly, the money here is so much better. Like, all this random stuff that I'm looting, it sells to merchants for multiple plat. I can see how people can afford a lot of this stuff now because the money is just so good in zones like this. Like, I'm used to killing stuff that drops either rusty or bronze weapons. Suddenly now I'm killing stuff that drops fine steel weapons and the money just gets so good. Then all that stuff that's selling in East Commons for like $1,000, $2,000, it doesn't feel as out of place. Like this fine steel 2-hand sword that this thing's about to drop, probably going to sell for like 6 or 7 plat, maybe even a little bit more. And I guess you could argue, well, you're kind of under-leveled for here, but that's what clerics do. They're often the lowest level person in the group. But yeah, typically I would expect you don't get fine steel weapons dropping like candy like this until late 30s, early 40s. And that's when the money starts to get good. So now we're in a situation where we've got a couple ads on us, and this is a common scenario that you'll see in groups. This guy says, the paladin says, kill the wizard first. So typically when you get several mobs coming into your camp at once, and you have, whether you have the expectation that one of them is going to get mez or not, you can see here the Enchanter's getting his ass kicked. You want to kill, generally the prevailing wisdom is you want to kill the casters first. So in this case, it's a wizard. Just burn it down. The benefit of fighting wizard NPCs is that they typically have less hit points than the typical, warrior / knight mobs. And the knights are just warriors. They're not like paladins or shadow knights. They're just warriors. Some of them might be shadow knights, but if they are, they'll harm touch, and that's not common. I think they're just warriors. Those have more hit points than the wizard mobs. So that's the benefit of fighting the wizards. The downside is they can nuke you, and that will often, at this level, take more damage than their hits. It's the reverse at higher levels. But at this level, they will. The pro is that you can burn them down really quick. And it was kind of around this point where I really started to enjoy being a cleric. I just like having, like in a group, I just like having such an important role in a group. And that's one of the things that I didn't like about playing a wizard. There were a lot of things I didn't like about playing a wizard. I just felt like I was so useless to the group. Yes, I do damage. And you can see here the Necro is actually twitching some of the people in the group, and you'll see it where it says a foreign source of mana invades your mind or something like that. And I was trying to help the Enchanter out here a little bit with stunning his pet when it charm breaks. But just being a cleric, I just feel like I'm so valuable to the group, assuming I'm doing my job correctly. And there's a sense of enjoyment that comes with that you won't get as a DPS class. Now, as a DPS class, you will get the enjoyment of knowing I'm the reason stuff's dying. I'm the reason we're all getting XP and loot here. And that's totally true. Like, I can't take that away from... I enjoyed it as a wizard, although you feel it much more so as a rogue. And there is other stuff you can do as like a wizard, for example. You can off-root if your Enchanter is AFK all the time. But there's just something about being a cleric and being a tank and being an Enchanter, what they call the holy trinity of MMOs. Something about those that are just really fulfilling to play as, because you have such a crucial role in the group. And we're finally moving here, and you can see at this point I have moved the group health bar to the middle of the screen so that I don't have to look to the right to see what people's healths are. It's right smack in the middle of my face. We're going down here. And also, from all this looting, one of the things I'm really starting to get happy about, and this is what I do when I think I've gotten lost. We've been pulling from this event room, by the way, if you're wondering. I don't know if that's what this is here that we're heading toward, but that's where we pulled from before we moved down here. It's at this point that I'm really starting to be thankful for past Janes for camping all this Shralic packs, because I'm getting a ton of these fine steel weapons, and they're heavy. Now, the Shralic packs are, I think it's like a 20 or 25% weight reduction. It's not massive, but it helps. And I ended up walking away from this with like 400 plat, maybe even more than that. Like, it was super helpful for all that crap I had to buy in East Commons. So I looted this Eye of Erd here. Yeah, I looked it up later on. It wasn't anything that I need. It's for some quest. I think it's for a wizard quest. Whatever it is, it's not something I need. So now we're going pretty far down here, and I think this is about as far down as it gets. There is still a little staircase that leads to the Ghoul Lord, but we don't go down that. And it's a very slightly sloped staircase. The tanks are splitting pretty evenly between tanking, which is helpful. The Paladin is also really good about healing herself. So a lot of what I'm doing is keeping the Necro and the Enchanter alive. Okay, this is kind of exciting here. We started pulling the Ghoul Cavalier room, and the Cavalier himself was up. So there we go, there's a named, and of course it's red to me. At this point, even the Enchanter's pet is red to me. A lot of this stuff down here is red to me. Like, I'm pretty darn underleveled. There's really not a lot of other classes that you would have down here at level 31. And even as twinked as these tanks are, this Ghoul Cavalier was tearing through him pretty well. And he's got a pet, so I assume he's a Shadow Knight. Could be a Necro, but probably a Shadow Knight. So he probably harm touched someone. And I'm running out of mana because these people are getting torn up so bad. But we've still got enough firepower to take him down. And what did he drop? It's always that moment of anticipation as soon as a named dies. Now, at this point, the loot on the named is not anything that people are really after, because we're past Kunark and we're into Velius. But let's just let's take a little peek. Let's see what's going on here. And yes, the Enchanter, Leroyce, wants a dungeon crawl, and so do I, because I want to show as much of Guk as possible. I think is that the Cavalier? No, that's the Cavalier's corpse right there. Alright, what's he got? He's got adamantite epaulets. Well, well, well. Look at that. That seems like a Cleric item if you ask me. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but Paladin, sure. Cleric, I think mainly those two classes are what would use that. And they start saying, Jane's maybe needs, Grat's Cleric, all you Janes, and here's a comparison to what I currently need. Now, it's better armor class and better stats, but I would lose out on the save versus magic. But you know what? I need that wisdom pretty badly. I'm a gnome, so I'm just going to take that current save versus magic shoulder slot and just stick it in my stick it in one of my bags and whip it out whenever I need some magic resistance. I've been using this bag as my backup, so top right. That's the main item I got, and I'm pretty darn happy about it because A, it's an upgrade, B, I didn't have to buy it, and no one really minded that I got it, so it was kind of a win-win situation there. Moving back out of the Cavalier room here, you can see things are getting a little squirrely as far as people's health goes, and yes, we have quite a few ads here. So, of course, I'm trying to heal, and they ran far away, and I didn't even know which way to go, but thankfully I was able to look through the wall and see where they were. Now, what do you do when you got multiple people in your group that are getting hit, and they're all losing health, and you're one of them? Well, yes, you always take care of yourself first, because it's kind of like what they say on the airplanes. Make sure you fit your own mask on yourself before helping others. It's kind of like that, except if A, you have a backup healer, and B, one of the people getting hit is an Enchanter, then it's kind of situational. You can see my mouse was right over the Divine Aura there. I thought about hitting it because I was getting hit, but I knew that I needed to heal, and I ended up not needing to hit the Divine Aura before someone was able to either mez. Oh, I just got hit by an AE, so that means we all got hit, I guess. So when multiple people in your group are getting hit and one of them's the Enchanter, always heal that person first. You basically go in order of yourself, Enchanter, and then the tanks, or the DPSs if they're like an int caster that can lose health really quickly. Because the tanks are going to take those hits better than other people. So even though their health might all be dropping, and you can see you've got 3 life bars right there, 4 if you count mine. The Necro's actually healing me with a heal over time right there. But the person I would heal in this situation, let's just say I had enough mana to do it, I would heal the Enchanter first, because even though the Enchanter technically has the most hit points out of the 4 of us, he's the one that can lose them the fastest. And the Necro here, I know I talked about him being twinked and all that, and that's not an insult, but he really knows what he's doing. Like, he's a great Necro. He heals me, he twitches me when I say my mana's low, he mezzes in place of the Enchanter, because the Enchanter's AFK quite a bit. He's good. I like this Necro quite a bit. He's a little bit bossy, but you know what? Some of the best players in this game are. Here we move into the Executioner room. The Executioner was not up, but you can see that it's like a jail cell little section with a center platform for, I guess, executing. It's kind of brutal. And now we're moving back to the Savant room. And it looks like Charm just broke. So instead of, because he's already got the stun, I decided I'm just going to heal him. This section here we're moving to is directly below that area I pointed out earlier where the gargoyles were with the big mouth open on the wall above with the fire pots. We're now right below that. So we're pretty far down, and we're near an area that they call Safe Hall, and holy smokes, this Necro's getting his butt kicked. Toss him a heal. Oh, never mind, I don't have enough mana. So here things are starting to get a little weird. The Necro and the Enchanter are having a little tiff, a little drama here. The Necro says, I'm done pulling since you're leading this. And the Enchanter says, I thought you were doing great. And the Enchanter's losing his hit points, but he's out of range. I'm trying to heal him, but he's out of range, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to heal him. I'm telling him he's out of range. It doesn't seem to motivate him to come any closer. And he's really losing health fast here, so wherever he is, he must be... Now, at this point, sometimes the best thing to do is to obviously loot that Fine Steel Spear, but the other best thing to do is to maybe not heal him, because if he's getting hit by that many mobs, if I heal him, they're going to come straight here. And maybe he's got a bunch of them on him, so maybe I just don't want to heal him. You'll see this a lot with monks. Well, this is sort of accidental in this scenario, but a lot of time with monks, they'll be like, hey, don't heal me, like, because they're just going to feign death, and they're purposely trying to prevent you from getting a ton of aggro. Look at all this stuff I've looted. These Shralic packs, man, they're filling up. I've only got one full pack left, and look at how much XP I've gotten, by the way. I'm almost done with this. Like, I've gotten a ton of XP, and the Enchanter's dead. And I decide I'm going to destroy those bat wings because they don't sell for that much, and I'd rather put a fine steel weapon in that slot. So the Enchanter's dead. At least he told us where he died. But does he want my res? Because my res is 0% XP. I don't know if there's any other clerics in the zone. So now, this dungeon crawl has turned into a corpse rescue for the Enchanter. This is very dungeon crawly, though, which I really like. A lot of times in Guk, it's not that way, especially if the zone is packed. You kind of just pick a camp and stick to it. In this case, we've been moving throughout a lot of the dead side here. But yeah, we got to go find that Enchanter's corpse. Okay, this was kind of a funny moment. We got his corpse back, and the Shadow Knight is lamenting his loss here. And then the Necro says, what in God's name? Now, I'll tell you what that refers to in a second, but the Enchanter says he's good with my 0% res, which shocks me, because most of the time people aren't willing to lose that XP, but hey, maybe I'm the only cleric in the zone. So I tell him, by the way, this is the first time I'll ever be rezzing anyone, so congrats, you have the honor of that. This is why the Necro said, what in God's name? He said, how did a basilisk end up here? Apparently that's not where they spawn, so how did one end up here? My theory is someone must have had one as a pet, and they either zoned out or died or whatever. But yeah, no one knows where this thing came from. I guess, I mean, unless it warped through the wall or something. So I got the little basilisk eye stock. I think if you have like a full stack of that, maybe it can be used for poison for rogues, but it also sells to merchants pretty well. And it's funny, the Enchanter says that's a Guk phrase. Where did that come from? Still need to get this guy's corpse, and now there's a mob over there. I don't even have consent. So I don't know how I'm going to get it without aggroing that mob. So I'm asking here someone to pull it a little closer. Alright, we got his corpse, and I'm officially casting Revive, which is my first time casting any resurrection spell. 300 mana, wow. Now you know why the Epic's so valuable, because getting that mana free... And this is the first res. The later ones cost a lot more mana. But yeah, the Necro said, I've never been sitting in Safe Hall and a basilisk pops out of the floor. Makes me wonder if it's nearby. And yay, I res someone for the first time. It was 0%, but I still feel like I helped someone out, and I like that. It's one of the best parts of being a cleric. We started moving back up from the Safe Hall, but then the Paladin got herself into a sticky situation. She actually had to use lay hands to keep herself alive. She was out of range for me to heal. But she told us basically, come on back down, because I got the Sage here. So we went to fight the Sage, which is another name that I've never fought before. I think it's like a wizard type. And let's see what it dropped. I, by the way, am very close to leveling here. Braided cinch cord. So that's kind of a int caster item. 2 armor class, 4 int, 8 hit points, belt. Doesn't really weigh anything. It's pretty nice, gotta say. Pretty nice. And it also drops the rune cowl. Interesting. I'll just take the fine steel great staff. We ended up rolling it. I passed because I already got the adamantite epaulets, so one of them can take it and sell it or put it on an alt. Who knows? So I want to show what this looks like here. When it says a foreign surge of mana refreshes your mind, you can see I'm at a little over 60%, and then boom, he just pushed me up to pretty darn close to 80. So let's say from about 63 to 78. So that's about 15% each time. It's pretty darn good. It's really inefficient for Necros to do that because let's just say it gives me, I don't know, 200 mana. I'm just picking that number. It costs the Necro like 400 mana. In fact, I think it's even worse than that. I think it's like a 2.5 to 1 ratio of mana. It's pretty bad, but if the Necro has nothing else to do with their mana and the Cleric needs it, it's worth it. I'm right on the verge of thinking here, and if you're wondering why that Necropet is doing that, it's because that's the reaction when they get buffed for, like, haste by their owner. Looks like they're getting tortured, but it's actually a good thing. And I start to realize that, ding! 777 went to, or 773 went to 793. I start to realize that if I want to get this faction with the live side frogs, I need to actually make sure I hit these things, because if you don't hit them, and I go a fight without healing anyone, I'm not going to get a faction hit. So there we go, level 32. Whew. Cleric is 32. I'm still the lowest in the group, and apparently I'm the reason why we can't grab some rogue that's LFG. But you know what? What an amazing experience to be able to do this at level 31, and to be able to show a pretty thorough dungeon crawl of, I would say, about half of Deadside. Really not how I expected this level to go. I expected to come here and try and solo some stuff right at the entrance, but lo and behold. Yeah, and this guy's saying only 7 more levels into your glorious complete heal. And I'm more focused on level 34 when I get superior heal, because that's coming up first, and that's... I really don't think when you get complete heal at 39, it's a super efficient heal yet. I mean, it is efficient, but how much hit points are you really healing? And is it more efficient than superior heal if your tank doesn't have more than, I don't know, 1,800 hit points? From here, we just fought back to the entrance, and some of the people had to leave because they had a bat phone call, which means they're in a higher level guild that they had to go do a raid. So, the Shadow Knight and I, we duoed for a while. I didn't film any of that. I did die during the duoing, lost my level, came back, got my level back, so let's call that death number 18. And then let's go talk about what I bought in East Commons. Okay, let's talk about some of this sweet gear that I got. Now, I'm going to start off with something that I didn't actually buy, and that's this shield. By the way, we're back to live commentary. I hate doing post-commentary. There was some live sprinkled in there, but it was mostly post. I don't like it as much. Try to avoid that when I can. So, I got this shield from a player who just gave it to me. He sent me this tell while I was running through North Row, and he said, hey, I pick a random person to give the shield, to give an item to. Now, I have avoided taking any freebies since I started this playthrough, because I don't like... I want to try to do everything self-made, but I didn't realize how dirt cheap everything would be in East Commons because this server is so kind of old. Not old, but like it's so farmed, over-farmed, to the point that it just drives the price of everything down. So I did take this shield. It is something that I could have afforded. They sell for about 1k on this server, which is insanely low to me. It replaced my Crested Mistmore shield, which I sold because I felt like the saves on it were kind of overlapping with these. So that's the first item I've accepted, and the way that I rationalized it in my mind was that I could have afforded it after I sold a couple things and farmed Guk and farmed willowisps. You know, if anyone has a problem with it, I'll gladly switch to another shield, because I actually almost got a Kristen Shitten shield. I think it's Shitten, is it Chitten? I don't know how to say that. Speaking of which, here's something I bought with the money that I got from Guk. Way better than Gauntlets of the Black, which I do still... Oh no, I sold those. I did sell these, because this was kind of the compromise item. I sold the Gauntlets of Iron Tactics as well, which I had previously purchased. So, 20 armor class, 10 strength, 35 mana. How can you beat that? For a battle cleric, that's amazing. I also bought this cloak, which was really good. It's about 200 plat, I think. Just a nice upgrade to my small leather cloak. And the elephant in the room, this robe. I always wanted this robe because I love the idea of a cleric wearing a robe. It's not great, and I do still have the dwarf beer-stained tunic, Coldane. But you'll notice not every race of cleric can use it. There's no dwarf on here. Why is that? My theory is because they never actually made a graphic for dwarfs wearing robes. It's the same with ogres, trolls, and barbarians, and half-elves. None of those races ever had a graphic for wearing robes, and I think that's why they made it so that dwarf clerics couldn't use this robe. But you might be wondering, well, what happens if an enchanter casts Illusion Dwarf and they're wearing a robe? It just shows up as like a, whatever color the robe is, so in this case it's like a really, I can't actually tell, is it a really light shade of blue, or is it a grayish, whitish color? It depends on the light. I mean, next to this guy's blue, obviously it looks white, but... Anyway, let's say an enchanter casted that. It would be wearing like a, I guess you could say leather/cloth on the chest, but it would just be the color of the robe. So in this case, whitish gray. So I got that because I really like the look. I really wanted to get a skull-shaped barbute, but I haven't seen any for sale. I'm not really paying attention to the chat here. This is kind of a, just to see what stuff is selling for, I have this open right now. I got this. It's better than the helmet I was using that I got in killing that giant in Oasis. But I still have that for the saves, just in case I'm fighting something with the save versus fire. Same thing with the beer-stained Colding Tunic. If I need the saves, it's there. What else did I get? I got this belt. It was pretty cheap. It was just better than the small leather belt I had. And I did replace my symbol of Bertoxilus with a Black Aloe medallion. I figured it was worth it, even though I lost the clicky. But I still hold on to this, not because of saves or anything, but because I like it. And I actually ran into another gnome cleric that was like, show me your initiate symbol, and I showed him, and he was like, okay. And that was the guy that res me, in fact, in Kithakor. He was like, are you a follower of the true god? And I said yes, and I showed him this. He was like, oh, okay, good. What else did I buy? Still have those boots from last episode. This I actually got while I was duoing with the Shadow Knight in Lower Guk. The weight is bad, but they were better than the small leather pants I was wearing, so I took them. This I got for 20 plat, 3 wisdom. It just replaced, I used to have 2 of these. So, I mean, that's almost worthless. 2 stamina, what does that equate to? 4 hit points? I mean, it's not worthless, but I figured the wisdom was more valuable. I actually asked the guy, I'll take 2. He's like, well, I only have 1, so you're going to have to take 1. The other thing I got was this Nathsar, I think that's how you say that, Nathsar bracer and arms. Each of these were about 200, maybe 250 plat. I got so much money from Guk and from farming willowisps, which I'll talk about in a second. Great idea for any low-level player. Farm the damn willowisps. But anyway, this was better than the black alloy bracer I had, and this was better than the small leather arms that I had. I think that's everything. Obviously, I got this in Guk. I just showed that. Yep, that's everything. Okay, I thought about replacing this, but I realized my most important item to replace right now is the range slot, and I already have there's a quest I want to do for a range slot. I could get this. It's not bad. It's cheap. But there's actually a range item quest that I want to do, possibly next episode. It's going to be dangerous, though. It's going to be really, really dangerous. I might not be ready for it. And I definitely want to replace this earring. But let me talk about what I had to do all those will-o-wisp turn-ins. So I thought that I could just turn them into the Dark Elf Gypsies in South Row, but apparently I didn't have the faction for it. So I went into Neriak. I was very scared, but I was able to get to the guy without aggroing anyone, that you turn the red wine quest in. Great quest. It immediately put me into the faction I needed with the Dark Elf in South Row, and so I just started turning in all the quest items there. You get, depending on what you have, let's see, do I have any? I don't have any lightstones on me. So regular lightstone will get you, not much, an item that gives you like 5 silver, and then a greater lightstone, which is what you really want, you can sell that for about 10 plat to the merchant. You turn in a bunch of those, which I've been doing. I've just been running around, literally east and west commons, looking for willowisps. I kill them. Sometimes I think there's one when I see this little block of light, but there's not anything there. And then I turn them in, and it's been really good money. And of course I sold a lot of the stuff that I used to have, like the Crested Mistmore Shield, Black Alloy Bracer, blah blah blah. So I highly recommend that. And by the way, the XP was pretty good. Like I would say about half of this was from duoing with the Shadow Knight in Lower Guk. The other half is just from turning in Will-O-Wisp Lightstones. It's really good experience, even at this level. Like, it adds up. So I don't have that much XP to go until level 33. That's why I think I want to try and do that quest next level, but I don't want to commit to it because it is a very dangerous quest for my level. It's doable, but it's dangerous. But you know I like a little danger. So let's see if I can do that next level.